The journey. That is what we are on.
Yes.
And I'm excited to be having this conversation with somebody who is just such a ultralight beam in my life. The one and only Lauren LC Boogie. You introduce yourself because I got so many nicknames for you.
Yes. I'm Lauren, but I love going by LC because this is why, okay? Of course, I'm extra. I have a story in my intro. Growing up with the name Lauren, you couldn't have like a cool nickname.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It was like Kiki, Lil Mama stuff. So I didn't have a nickname growing up. And so once Lauryn Hill came out, I was called L Boogie. This was like when I was a teenager. And then the whole Laguna Beach thing, I have the same initials. So now I'm LC. So I'm just happy to have a nickname. But anyway, hey, everybody.
Lauren. I'm Lauren Coleman.
Yes.
And what do you do, Lauren Coleman?
Well, I am an actress. I prefer to say a comedic actress because that is definitely my niche. I love making people laugh. Originally from Chicago, lived in LA, New York, Atlanta, which is my second home. And I'm also a sister, a daughter, an aunt, and somebody who loves being from Chicago.
Come on, Chi-Town.
Yes, that's me, and I love Jesus.
I love that. Love the Lord. He heard your cry.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
And what about you, handsome?
You know, I am Southside Chicago, Helen, representing to the day I die. But I am Edwin Walker. I go by the moniker as a creative as Micheaux. And I am a multi-hyphenated creative architect with a focus in storytelling, filmmaking, curating, and facilitating. And, you know, as we talk about the journey, you just think about, as I just said, all of those things, how I got there, you know, and how we get to that point to say, this is who I am. And I think a dream is the best way for us to kind of like set the foundation of this conversation.
Yeah.
So when we think about dreams, I would love to ask you, how old were you and when did you know that you had a dream? Like, when did that aha moment of like, I want to do this when I get older?
Yeah. I would say the first time I knew that I had a dream, or definitely that it had to do with acting, was after I saw Sister Act 2. So
joyful,
listen,
Lord.
Lauryn Hill changed my life.
Listen, I wanted to be Mary had a little lamb.
And that movie is so good because it was so authentic. During that time in the 90s, like sometimes they would try to make things cool and hip hop and it would be so corny. So for them to do this movie and execute the culture so well, when I was like, these kids are cool, like for real, it just made a difference because before that, I wanted to be a Soul Train dancer. So I already knew I was going to be on somebody's stage with a cute outfit on, showing my talents, okay? And I saw Sister Act 2. I saw Lauryn Hill, Tanya Blunt, Whoopi Goldberg, all those amazing performances. And I was like, I can't believe there's projects out here like that are this cool. How can I be a part of that? So after that, I just started chasing the stage, is what I like to say. Wow. Like, I just remember that moment being like, the anxiety of, I never want to feel the anxiety of being in the audience. I'd rather feel the anxiety of stage fright.
Yeah. And it's funny you say Sister Act 2. That's one of my favorite films. And I remember my cousins and I would go over each other's house and we would watch that. And I wanted to be Ryan Toby. I always wanted to, when Jesus washed, try to get that note.
Epic.
But it's funny that you mentioned that because having family and family seeing the importance of community, we would go over my auntie's house and my grandma's house. And all we had was TV and movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes we couldn't go out, you know, and go outside because I grew up in the hundreds, you know, and at that time in the 90s, it was a lot of violence.
Activity.
It was a lot of activity. It's called the Wild Wild Hundreds.
Yeah.
So I got lost in that. And I remember my grandmother putting on Cooley High. And I remember seeing Glenn Turman. And I was fortunate enough to meet him and tell him this, that because I saw him, I saw myself in him in Cooley High. Wow. And he was a writer and preached, just was everything that I'm like, I want to be like that when when I get older. And I looked into it, and he was an actor, and I was about 5 or 6. And my family will tell you, I started trying to figure out what I got to do to get there. And I would call NBC 5 and say, at 5, in the yellow pages. They like, little boy, if you don't get off this phone.
You said, I'm going to figure it out.
I'm going to figure it out.
Oh,
and
my
I was
goodness.
like, how do I get on the Cosby Show?
Oh, you would have been perfect.
I'm like, how do I get a Sister Act 3?
Yeah.
I was already, how do I get
back
on?
In the habit.
Right. And so seeing representation, like you just said, those kids, it was a connection. And I think in the 90s, we had so much of that growing up as 90 kids.
Oh, gosh.
That I knew I want to be a performer. I want to be an artist. I want to be able to get on that stage and perform.
Yeah.
And I feel like once you got that dream and once you see it, now you go on the journey to get there.
That's it.
And what was your journey like? Like once you knew you wanted to get there, like where did it take you? And like, cause I know you lived in New York.
Yes.
So tell me your going to New York story, please. So like just connect the journey of having a dream and how you went after it.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I think this is my first time putting those two together. Me having the dream and then that moment of me really truly going after it. I will say that there wasn't a plan. I've told this story so many times. Driving Uber, like I can tell it in 3 minutes if you have a short trip, or I can tell it in an hour. It just depends how far you're going. But
give us a short version now. You know,
exactly.
Don't have us
Say that to say. So I was in LA at the time, and nothing was sticking. And at the moment, I didn't realize that was the universe telling me, you're not going to be planted here. But, you know, I just knew that things weren't working out. And I was watching Saturday Night Live and writing like some sketches at the same time, or just coming up with some creative stuff for my characters, and scrolling Facebook, multitasking at its finest, right? And so I scrolled past my cousin's post that said, I just gave myself the opportunity I waited for someone to give me 3 years ago. And I was like,
that's a bar.
That is so like you just gave yourself the opportunity. Like I asked you 3 years ago, but I'm just going to do it. And immediately I heard this voice say, so are you going to give yourself the opportunity and audition for SNL? I was like, no. And the voice was like so audible, I answered out loud, like, no. Like, wow, what? That doesn't even make any sense. Because at the time, a little context, I had never gone to like UCB or IO or Second City, any of the prominent, you know, improv theaters. I, you know, was very, I don't know what you call it. I would attack characters and I would audition for different sketch comedy groups and do it that way. So it was an absolute no. I can't audition. I don't have these credentials. So it kept nagging at me. It's almost like a montage in a movie where somebody's like, I'm not going to do that. Next scene, I'm not going to do that. Next scene, I'm not going to do it. Fourth scene, they're doing it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that happened for the next week. I wrestled with it. And 10 days after that occurrence, I was on a train one way to LA. I told my job that this is something I wanted to do. They were asking me, like, do you know anybody out there? No. Have you ever been? No. I'm just getting on the train and winging it, okay?
Listen, you got to go for it.
Listen, and it's so weird because you know something is real when everything else seems counterintuitive. The comfort felt me staying and just following rules or credentials, whatever, felt counterintuitive. This, even though it had seemed all over the place, made more sense. So boom, I get on the train. It leaves Friday night in LA. And the cool thing about this trip is that I had a 6-hour layover in Chicago. It was going to take 3 days. Get to Chicago, change, see my friends, finish the last leg of the trip. I get to New York. I'm like, okay, what's happening? I don't have a plan. I just know I'm supposed to be here. Yeah. And so I get an Airbnb and I'm like, all right, I got to see 30 Rock. I'm here. I have to go to 30 Rockefeller Plaza. And I go see it. I meet this driver for NBC, this nice Caribbean man. You know, he's telling me about New York, whatever. So the next couple days, I'm like, my approach in this situation is I'm going to treat this like a 90s hip hop artist, okay? Because
like
back in the day,
the street team for Bad Boy.
You know, when you wanted to get signed, you would try to find Russell Simmons, Puff, J, whoever, and be like, yo, spit and get signed. So I was like, I'm about to practice these characters. I'm going to roll up on Lorne Michaels and bust them upside his head with these characters, right?
waiting for Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
Like, is that him?
And just bust out with Sofia Vergara. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that was the plan. So I go to 30 Rock the next day and I say, I have an audition with Saturday Night Live.
So y'all gonna see me today.
Yes. And they're like, okay, we'll call upstairs. I'm like, oh my God, they call it. And so they were like, yeah, no, Lauren, oh, okay, huh? They were like, they don't have you on for today. And I was like, okay. Like, I tried. I can't tell this story and I didn't even ask for an audition, right? So I go downstairs in the little cafe area and just try to come up with other ideas. Nothing happens. Next day, I run into Kenan Thompson in the lobby.
Wow.
I'm doing impersonations for him. He's like, well, the audition, like he wants to help me, but he's like, I ain't never been.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, bombarded by
you
somebody.
Dropping me off like a mixtape demo. He like, I've never had a comedy mixtape demo like this before. What do I do?
In the flesh, okay?
Wow.
This is what we doing in the lobby. He had his do-rag on, everything. I'm like, Kenan a real dude. But yeah, he got my email at least. He tried to help me out. So that was that plan. Then I'm like, all right, like the Today Show was, they did their thing when they had the people outside. Plaza. So I'm like, let me get a sign. And I'm going to stand outside across the street and it says, Lorne Michaels, I want to audition for Saturday Night Live. Right. I did that. People would see the sign and be like, good luck. And then people, when I first got out there, it's like some delivery people that were giving me tips of where to stand. They were like, Beck Bennett picks up his sandwiches over here. One doorman was like, Kenan always takes his smoke breaks right there. Like they were telling me like little tips of where to stand. I was like, that was so dope. So I stood out there for a whole day. Nothing happened, but I did meet this Black family who read my sign and they was like, we gonna go on in, touch and agree, because they were going on a tour inside. And they did. When they came back, I was like, we were in the studio and we was touching and praying. I said, amen. They were doing that. Okay,
and then you end up finally met Lorne Michaels, right?
Yes. So this is like it's a week. It's been a week.
You were just persistent every day. Every day. Showing up.
And trying to do something.
Wow.
Right? Now I'm out of money. Now I'm out of ideas. I'm at Bryant Park. I'm like, I'm like, God, you brought me here for a reason. What is going on? Nothing is happening. Yeah. And I was talking to this homeless man because, hey, this is where I am. And we're chopping it up. Cool dude, Warren. And I was like, you know what? This reminds me of the story of Jericho in the Bible. And I was like, I feel like 30 Rock is like my Jericho, because in the story, they walk around the city of Jericho and the walls come tumbling down. And he's like, you should do that. And I'm like, I'm thinking, man, that makes sense to you? Like, I'm expecting him to be like, well, I don't know, you know? And so I'm like, all right, cool. Go to 30 Rock, put on Fred Hammond Shout Unto God, which is about the story of Jericho. Walk around 7 times. On the 7th lap, I'm almost done. I see the cast. I think this is season 43, they were going into the building. So I'm like, oh my God, like this is a sign. And so I come around to the entrance. I see that same driver I met the first day I was there, the Caribbean driver. He's like, how's it going? Da-da-da. And I'm defeated at this point because I'm like, I came all this way and, nothing is happening. And as I'm talking to him, I look and I see these 2 men walking and I'm like, man, they about to get robbed because they got on suits. And the area around 30 Rock, Times Square is very sketchy. So I'm like, what y'all doing? I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm talking to him and I look again and it's Lorne Michaels and Steve Higgins, the creator and executive producer for Saturday Night Live. And I'm losing. I'm like, oh my God. I get my sign back out, have my little 30-second elevator spiel. My name is Lauren. I'm from Chicago. I've always wanted to be on SNL since I was 10 years old. I want to audition. Lauren is looking at me like this girl, because I don't know how I looked at that point. I mean, it's been a long 10 days, okay? My hair is all over the place. I got on this University of Chicago Bears sweatshirt. I don't know what was going on. But Steve Higgins was really nice. He was like, give me your email. Wow. He was like, actually, take my email me. And he was like, send us a tape. Just make sure it's clean and we'll take a look at it. I was like, okay. And so I ended up sending them a tape. And they told me this was May. They were like, send it again in July. I'm like, crap. So I sent it again in July. And then I don't hear anything. And then in August, they had me go do an audition at UCB, like a student showcase type thing. Yeah. And so those were the two.
But just your persistence. And I think that dream, you saw it as a little kid. And and I think that's where we connect is because you got to be a fearless dreamer.
Yes.
And your story just connects because being in Chicago, I felt like I was telling somebody at the time in 2006, I remember I did The Dark Knight and Prison Break. So it was like extra work.
Yeah.
But from that, I got an agent and I did a film called The Promotion. It was with Sean William Scott and John C. Reilly. And
Sean William Scott
was Stifler.
Say the last
Stifler from American Pie.
Oh, Stifler. I think the other one is like Shawn Michaels. I feel like they have the same kind of name.
It's like the 3-name thing.
Okay, okay, cool.
But I remember knowing I wanted more. I want more. And I did this film, and it was Chris Lofton who played in That Power Force, and it was Maestro Harrell. We were like these kids antagonizing them.
Yeah.
And they had, Chris had did Hardball, Maestro had did a whole bunch of stuff.
The Wire. Had done The Wire at that point? Yeah.
And at that time, I had auditioned for The Wire as well, and I didn't get it. It was a whole long thing of just not having feeling like supported. And here I am now on set, and at the time, the producer was married to David Goyer. And Jessica, her name was, David Goyer had like a deal to do like Batman, DC. And instead of being around Chris and Maestro, I was like, I want to be a Video Village. I want to be around these directors and producers. So I'm telling them I got a script idea. I got a TV show idea. I'm just giving them ideas on my whole 3 days. Mind you, we literally glorify extras. But I'm going to be at this video.
You shooting your shot.
I was shooting my shot. And I didn't even know Stephen Conrad, who directed the movie, The Promotion. He directed The Pursuit of Happiness. And I had heard about the book, but I think the movie maybe was on its way being out. So to make a long story short, I remember in that moment, like what you just said, back and forth. Do I do this or do I don't? And Sean William Scott, which I will credit him this, Stifler, we were sitting by the trailers and I was like, I want to move to LA. I want to go to New York. I want to keep acting. I want to write. I just feel like in Chicago, it's not enough opportunities.
And how old were you at this time?
I'm 17. So this is the summer before I turned 18 in November. And I was going to go to Columbia College and I was waiting to hear back from Hampton University.
Oh, nice.
If I was going to get accepted there. And Sean William Scott said, man, like that's always going to be there. But you being young and being full of like this passion, go after your dreams. And I left that set with all of their emails. And I just prayed about it. I surrendered. So here I am turning 18 in November of 2006. And I kept hearing his voice say, just go. I originally wanted to go to New York, but I had to go to LA because I had got these connections.
Yeah.
So Stephen Conrad was like, well, if you come here, I'll, set up a meeting for you and I'll tell you who to talk to as far as literary agents.
Love it.
In January 2007, I remember I didn't tell family members. I left my mom's house. I wrote her a note. I wrote her like, I'm sending you a 4-page letter. I had to apologize to my mom about it.
You left a black woman's house without telling her and you left a note?
I left a note and I ended up going to stay with a friend and I felt bad. I told my mom, I finally called her and I said, I'm going to LA. And my mom and my grandmother took me to the airport January 17, 2007.
Okay.
I didn't even graduate high school because I wanted to be in LA for pilot season. So because I knew another friend who was a child actor, they were like, you can finish by mail. So mind you, I'm moving to LA with 4 suitcases. I get to LA on January 17, 2007, 4 suitcases. I literally had 3 apartments to go look at. I only had $1,300 to my name. I literally turned 18 in November. Here we are in January. I'm 18. And I just had this delusion, but I literally mapped it out. But I was like, I could do this.
Wow.
And I had lived there with my grandfather when I was 12, but we were like in Pasadena. That's when I started acting.
Yeah.
But to just end on that, I remember feeling like everything in me said, go and do it. And it was a lady. I was waiting there for a bus that was going to take me to this motel on Sepulveda Boulevard.
Oh my gosh, Sepulveda.
And this black lady, she was like, baby, where you going with all these suitcases? You've been here for like an hour. And I said, the Bonaventure Hotel. And I remember her face, and she looked at me and she said, that's a hooker hotel. And I'm like,
that's what the hoes be.
Exactly. And my heart is pounding. And
you like, I don't want to go there.
I didn't know what to do. And I end up going to the hotel. It turned out to be a hooker hotel. It was disgusting. It was dirty. But the next day I went and found me a studio apartment for $600 in South Central. And my journey began. But
wow,
I knew I had to go there. And I was in LA for 13 years, lived in New York for a year and a half, worked in Atlanta. And through the journey of a dreamer, I feel like you gotta just explore. You gotta go out there and you have to do it afraid. And I was scared as hell.
Yeah.
I just didn't know I'm a baby.
Yeah.
But I had so much.
I was going to say that about your age, because my story, I was in my 30s, but you're 17, 18.
I was a baby.
Going to find somewhere to live on your own.
On my own. Nobody. And
wow,
it has made me appreciate the journey.
Yeah.
And I think LA being out there for like 14, 15 years, it makes you it shows you it makes you, how do I say this? I don't want to say this, I want to say this politically correct. LA makes you find yourself. Because there are a lot of people that go out there and they don't know who they are, and LA will tell you who to be.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case with me. I came there from the south side of Chicago. I remember people used to be like, yo, you ain't got to be so hard and so rah, rah, rah. They didn't let the GDs in the door. Like, I just had to have that because being from Chicago helped me survive LA.
Yeah, you have to be like, nah, you can't be over there green. Nah, that'll get your ass messed up.
Exactly. And I think when we talk about the journey, I think like just to close, like, do you feel like everything that we've been through, having that sense of delusion and being like, because I think good delusion is good. Because you not having a plan and just doing it, it's like something in me, God is telling me I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
What did you take from that journey and those experiences, and how do you see it? How do you apply that to your future?
That's a great question. And I think it's just interesting hearing you say the word delusion, because that's literally what it is.
To be a dreamer, you gotta be delusional.
You gotta be like just out of your mind. It's insane. Everything else is like, you do and it makes sense, but this is different. Yeah, you have to. But that goes into the question. Like you have to, one, what I've learned is that God is real. Okay. 2, trust that instinct, trust that voice, trust that delusion, because again, it's so, there's so much conviction. Like I said, anything else just seems counterintuitive. So for me, it's definitely trusting that voice. Yeah. Because look what happened. And then I think for the future, just to know that going forward, and to know that the results are in the delusion. Yeah. The results aren't in this well-planned A, B, C, D, E, F. For some things it could be, but for the most part, especially what I've learned, the success, whatever it is you have on the other side is, basking in that delusion. So don't be afraid of it. It is. Because that's what we do. Yeah. We have these ideas come, we dream big, and then when it comes to us, it's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Well, that's what you dream. So you got to get your butt on the train and just figure it out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So trusting that whatever it is that you want is on the other side of that. Yeah,
and I'll add to this. Don't have no regrets. And I think I've been in that place in my life and I've been in this industry for 20 years. I started when I was 12. My first SAG job when I was 12 years old.
That's cold.
And I look at myself today, you know, and I'm like, bro, like, don't have any regrets, and be okay with failure. And I think about how many bad auditions I've had. I think about how many horrible pitch meetings. And, I started my production company in 2012 out of survival because I didn't see anybody else producing stuff with people that looked like me. And when I was on set, it wasn't people that looked like me behind the scenes. Yeah. So even starting Lab 88 and cultivating like creative change and bringing artistic community together, I can't have regrets of my journey to get here. I accepted the failure. I accepted the times of being depressed, you know, and being like, I remember I saw Wayne Brady do a talk and he was like, nobody sees you when you are in your apartment, in your underwear, crying like, I can't get an audition. Yeah. I don't know if I'm worthy enough. What do I do? Like, they don't see that. They just see you on a red carpet like, oh my God, you just got here. You're amazing. So I tell every young artist, every young dreamer, do it afraid. Don't have regrets. Sometimes it's going to be good days. Sometimes it's going to be bad days. Man. But keep showing the fuck up every day. Just show up. Yeah. And I still got to tell myself this every day in a 20-year journey. So for the future, going to LA, you going to New York, standing outside to see Lauren Michaels, me literally 18, living in South Central with these, you know, suitcases and not having no family there. You know, it's like, this has built us to where we are today, and we only continue to evolve off of this. So I just love the dreamer's journey, and I love being around dreamers like you. Yeah, same here. So thank you for this conversation, this time. Gosh. And you know, you are part of the Lab 88 community, and just being there to like, just push people. And I think that's the work we'll continue to do, is just cultivate change and people that want creative impact. Because all you got to do is just be your most authentic self and keep on dreaming. Yeah. And what's you know, don't stop believing. That's always in my head every time. The days that, and then Rocky is, you got to have your own dreamer soundtrack. What is a song that like gets you pumped up or motivated? It's just like, you got this. You know, I'm so Chicago. So every day I'm hustling. When I hear that in the beginning, because I've always had to hustle. Really? That's how I'm a multi-hyphenated //////. Yeah. Because I also grew up with a single mother, my dad in and out of, you know, prison. So I had to hustle and figure it out. Yeah. So I can't wait for this to unpack this more and discuss like how us being in Chicago helped us in that journey. Because I tell people, because there's way more to this. When I was auditioning, I was staying in the shelter in the Bronx. So that's a whole nother thing. But I wouldn't have been able to survive that had I not lived on the West Side. You know what I'm saying? So it builds you an armor and it builds you a tough skin. So we're going to keep going on this journey. Thank you, the beautiful Lauren Coleman. Thank you, Fred. And I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of you. Yeah. The journey. Look, for showing up. Have my Oprah moment. Yeah. Gather. All right.